So Kathy, take it away.
Hi, I'm Kathy D. Dillman. For those who don't know me, I'm the Vice President of the Amherst Historical Society, and it is my honor today to ask questions of these seasoned citizens of Amherst. And what I'm going to be asking are questions about your lives as Amherstonians and in the world around you and how you each experience those things. If there's anything that you don't necessarily want to answer, I'm not going to get really personal. You know what, I'd rather not answer it. That's fine. Whatever you want to do, it's totally fine. Now, if anybody has follow-up questions, we're going to save them till the end. Okay, so first we're going to go down left to right this way. We're going to go with Mrs. Mary Powers Miller. So, so if you would please tell me when you were born.
When?
Yeah.
July 8th, 1926.
1926. Okay, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Have you lived in Amherst all your life?
Yes. Born in Amherst Hospital. Lovely little building with sandstone steps and one kind of material that made it. Now it's been made up of about 5. Probably should get the sign for the ugliest building in Amherst.
Were you the firstborn?
Firstborn in the hospital?
No. In your family, I'm sorry, no.
Yeah, well, my brother was from a different mother. His first mother died. His mother died when he was like 4 years old. So I was kind of like the first one because I was 8 years younger than he.
Okay.
So that, but I just wanted to tell you, Jim Irwin was the firstborn baby in Amherst Hospital.
It wasn't even a question I thought to ask. That's wonderful that you know it. What, do you know what year that would have been? I'm sure you do.
Well, it was started in 1916, and Jim graduated from high school, I think, in 1937. So his father was a barber in downtown Amherst.
Now, Mrs. Ott.
Yes.
Can you tell me your birth date? And have you lived in Amherst all your life?
I was born July 2nd, 6 days before Mary. 1926, but I was born in Lorain, Ohio, at home, and go to the hospital. We did go to the hospital. And I was a middle child. We moved to Amherst in 1935 after the Depression.
Was it to find work, or was it?
Yeah, Dad was a mechanic, a real good auto mechanic, such as cars were back then. And he had a job with George Badenhouse at the Amherst Oil Company. You guys probably have heard of that. And so then he found a house for us to rent at the end of Sealy Avenue. And Jim had a really great story about that house. We can get into that
Yeah,
later.
Once you start talking, we'll ask you all kind of questions.
But that house had been next to the hotel. Now, probably none of you guys even know about the hotel. You know about the hotel. Your mother told you.
Okay, tell us about the hotel. Where was the hotel?
The hotel is right across from Beaver Court, where the dentist's office is now. Is it a dentist's office?
Yeah.
Next to
And
the
it
old
was,
barber.
that had been there for years, hadn't it, Jim? Had been added on. And anyhow, this house had been first a shoe store, and it had been a meat market. And then they moved it out to the end of Sealy Avenue. You know where Sealy Avenue is? And the neighbor kids, Harry Sagers, told us that that was a bootlegger place, and the whole neighborhood smelled bad from it. But we didn't know anything about it until he started working up here, and he showed me a story. In fact, I'm going to have it with me, and I'll show it to you later.
Oh, great.
But Elliot Ness was the guy who arrested them for the bootlegging. It really was a cool story. When I showed it to my son, he was just amazed.
Oh, that's oh, but this is why we do this stuff, because you never would have thought that he would be here. You knew he was in Cleveland, I just didn't think he was.
Jim's mom and dad went to school with Mary and I, and then to have him come and tell me about this old house I lived in. That was what was so cool.
Jim's not old, but he's seasoned.
Yeah. You're gonna get your own one of these, just you, for like 6 hours. You better be ready for that. We have all kind of questions for you. Now, Mrs. Head,
Right.
can you tell us your maiden names? I don't know that.
Eldridge.
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 Something about a paper store?
Yeah, office supply.
Okay, I remember.
My father had an office supply store in Lorraine for years. Till he died.
And when were you born?
Oh, December 18th, 28.
So you're the junior of these three.
Yeah.
She's not as well.
You're the baby. Yeah.
Right.
You're not as old as the school kids. No. Okay, so have you lived in Amherst all your life as well?
No,
When did you move here?
54.
54. You're still new in town.
Yeah, right. That's what I was told.
Okay. Did you move here after you got married?
Oh, yeah, I had 2 kids. And my husband was a sales rep for Gulf Oil.
So let's see. So let's go back to growing up in Amherst for Mrs. Miller and Mrs. Ott. Okay. So what school did you attend here in Amherst?
We went all through school in Central School in
Central.
Church Street. Well, I came in the 4th grade, Mary went all through school.
It was the only school that actually, other than the Catholic school, that was in the city, but we had
School
school.
was true.
Yeah, this school that wasn't going then, was it? Where we,
Goldie went to elementary school.
but it was in the township.
Oh,
How many grades were in the school?
Well,
All in one building?
all 12. There was no
No
kindergarten.
Kindergarten didn't start till like the 1950s, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there?
You knew about that year, didn't you? Didn't you work some with the kindergarten started? Oh, as an aide? Yeah. Well, our school was long ago. They were on different floors and you could be in the 1st grade the whole year and not realize there was anyone in the high school. But you knew there were people there and you hoped for the day that you would be able to be there, which it was so well organized that we weren't all running into each other. We had our own area.
Did you have one first grade, or was it like,
2.
like now they have 2 or 3 different classrooms?
There were 2.
2 first grade classrooms?
And when you went to the bathroom, you went to the basement. You didn't ask to go to the bathroom, you asked to go to the basement, because that's where it was.
Good plan.
And you went all by yourself.
Now, how long did your school day last?
From about 8:30 to 3:30, 3 or 3:30. And we walked home for lunch at noon, unless we were bus kids. The kids who came on the bus stayed at school, and the rest of us walked home and walked back for our lunch hour.
Now, Mrs. Hackman, you went to school in Lorraine?
Yeah, early.
Irving. Was it the same way there?
Yep.
I know Lorraine was a lot bigger than Amherst, obviously, but was it the same kind of setup where there were so many grades in one building?
Yeah, 9.
9? Wow. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Okay, what was your earliest memory, Mrs. Miller? The first thing if you could think of your earliest memory, what was it? Probably wasn't being born. Well, maybe it wasn't on you. But your oldest memory, your earliest thing you can think of.
About anything?
About anything.
Wow.
It could be sitting under a tree. It could be getting in trouble for something. It could be being in a classroom. Anything. Doesn't have to be big, important stuff.
Walking to school.
Well, nothing to do with school necessarily, just life.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember riding to town in a buggy.
You mean your mother pushing?
My mother pushed the buggy,
What a memory.
and I was pretty big in that buggy. I wasn't just a squirrel. And one day, she got some bread at the bakery, and when she got home, the bread had a hole all the way down through the middle of it. So I eaten it.
Mrs. Ox?
Yeah, it's funny because I think back to my life when we lived in Lorraine the first 9 years of my life. And other than the depression, and that didn't even register at that age, you know. We didn't know we had less food than other people. When we had milk toast for supper, we thought that's what everybody ate for supper. And that was it, you know. But the main thing is when I started writing my book about Amherst, the first thing that came to mind is the days we moved to Amherst. And I just remembered every detail of that, even though I was only 9 years old. It's like my life began when I moved to Amherst.
Mrs. Tapp? Your earliest memory? Anything.
Oh, great.
Doesn't have to be of Amherst, doesn't have to be of school, just anything.
Just walking to school. I had to walk a mile, walk home for lunch, and we thought nothing of it. But there weren't the overweight kids that there is today.
Did you walk home from school for lunch from kindergarten on us?
There was no kindergarten.
First grade up?
First grade to ninth grade when I went to the high school. I still walk. My father would drive to work and he would not take me. We needed to exercise.
Okay, so this one's more for Mrs. Tapp and Mrs. Ott. So you had said that what differences between Amherst and Lorraine as a child? When you moved from one, well, not as a child, you were an adult, but what was the first thing you realized that almost like we're not in Kansas anymore kind of thing? This is a really different town from Lorraine.
No, that's why I moved here.
We moved here because of the Depression. Dad was out of work for so many years, 5 little kids. And he finally found this job in Amherst, and that house was available to rent, so we moved here. And it just was such a warm, fuzzy feeling you got about this place. The neighborhood, all the neighbors came over to help if they could. And then Dad got sick and died 2 years after we moved here and left Mom with 5 little kids. She couldn't drive. She didn't drive, didn't have a car. And the neighbors just stepped in and helped us. And Mrs. Rosencrantz, Dale Rosencrantz's mother, was friends with my mom, and she took her to get a widow's pension. And we got $66 a month for 6 of us to live on. We lived on it. It was not a problem. We come through the Depression. We were used to that kind of a lifestyle, and it wasn't a problem. I can remember the caseworker that would come out you know, then everybody that got a free pension had to account for every penny of it. Mom had to keep a list, and we begged her for penny candy so we could go to Jake Sager's candy store. And 5 kids, that was 10 cents. So she said she hated to lie, but she wrote 1 pair of shoestrings, 10 cents, and gave us each 2 cents to go. You remember those things? Sure. My mother wouldn't have lied. Well, Jim, you didn't more, but your dad did. And she wouldn't have lied on a bet, but she just felt so bad that us kids couldn't have a penny for candy.
Now, how did your father die? How did your father die?
He had pulmonary abscess of the lung from, what do you call it?
Asbestos.
Your teeth when they're real bad. Abscess teeth. And they were treating him for pneumonia. He was 47 years old and they thought he had pneumonia because his lungs filled up with fluid. And here he had abscess teeth draining into his lungs.
My dad was 47.
Really? Mom was 44 and had 5 kids. You know, you had to throw this one in. Most of you know it. The house that used to be where the movie is today was the Horn House.
See, now, did any of you ladies work outside the home?
At what time?
At any time? I mean, as either like being teenagers or as young people before you got married or in your marriage or any time?
Started out 10 years, those were good ones.
Well, when I was 16 years old, I started to work at Michigan's restaurant, which is Doc Corn Cafe. And Wally Michigan himself was the owner and proprietor and boss. And it was kind of like a rite of passage to work there when you grew up in Amherst. And it was a kind of a hard job for a kid who really wasn't spending all of her life washing dishes, but I learned to wash dishes and sweep floors and make sundaes and hamburgers and serve people, and do what we could do to make people want to come to the restaurant. I did that for 2 years, and when I got out of high school, I worked at the St. Joe's Hospital as a nurse's aide, and then I worked in the employment office it was a farm labor office in Lorraine after I got out of high school, and they employed kids to work on farms. They would call up and say, we need 30 kids to pick beans at Line Boss. Well, you had to find 30 kids by a telephone to get on a truck and go out to Line Boss to pick beans, things like that. And then after that, eventually I got my degree to teach first grade and then kindergarten. Did that. I worked at the Chatterbox restaurant when I was older, like in my 40s or 50s, because I learned, I said something when somebody cut their hand real bad with a knife at the restaurant and had to go to the hospital, and I said, well, I used to work in a restaurant. I could go right behind the counter and help out. So they said, would you mind working on Saturday nights? This is when I was teaching. And I thought that might be neat, so I started to work at 12 midnight and got done at 6 in the morning on Friday night and Saturday and until 4. And I did that for several years.
Excuse me, Mary, what years were you? That wasn't when Pam's parents owned the Chatterbox, was it?
It's when Denny and Sharon owned the
Oh, that was,
And that was a blast. I really liked that. And that restaurant saved more people's lives because people came from the bars, came to the table, and they could go home sober or at least sober enough to drive. I made a lot of friends there. Then I ran for council. I think I probably got more votes from the chatterbox than anybody else.
Did you serve on council?
8 years
8 years, okay. When did you do that?
at large. It was about 1975, about when you and Joe went to the Navy. And 75 on, it was Mayor Jaworski, Mayor DePaula, Mayor Jaworski, and Mayor Higgins. I worked with
So you taught for how many years?
30.
30. Where, in Amherst?
Yes. And according to some people, I got the job because my dad was superintendent. I didn't get the job because I graduated from college. It was because Mr. Powers got her that job. It was not the case.
Now, where did you go to college?
Baldwin Wallace.
Mrs. Ott, did you ever work outside the home?
Oh, yeah. We had to, we needed money. My first job was babysitting, and some of you guys, you remember the Wilfords, Wally Wilford and them. And I used to babysit their 3 boys. I was 13 years old, and they were ornery. But that was my first job, and then I got a job at the White Inn restaurant in Vermillion, and just hated it. I was real shy, was afraid to talk to people, and I had to wait people. I didn't get many tips either. But then I finally applied for a job at Kroger's in Amherst, and I worked there for 8 years through my marriage, and then I think when I got pregnant, I quit there. But that was a fun job during the war.
Now, what made that a fun job? What made working at Kroger a fun job?
Well, it was during the war, and when the guys would come home on leave, there were all girls working there, all teenage girls. So naturally, they'd come in to just hang out a little bit. And we'd have a party. We'd turn a big toilet paper box over and put meat paper over and put lunch meat and bread and stuff on there, and they'd bring their liquid refreshments, and we'd have a party going in the back room, and then we'd take turns waiting on customers. I mean, everybody couldn't be everywhere. That was fun. I mean, it was innocent fun. No, we didn't hurt anybody. Oh, one guy got a little bit too much. Jim Donnelly, remember? He got mad at one of us because we laughed at him. He threw a pound of ground coffee beans at us. That was a mess.
I thought you said ground beef.
Other than that, we had no tragedies. And I worked there until I started having children, and then didn't work again until I was divorced, and I went into a real estate office as a secretary to 52 salespeople. You try answering phones
Wow.
and relaying calls back and forth with them. But that was a fun bunch of people too. A lot of parties there after my hours. Their hours were flexible, but when I got done, we had parties in that office.
Now, Mrs. Happ, how about you?
Well, I worked for my father until
That takes a fun out of
years, yeah. But gee, I grew up in the restaurant, or in the office supply. I was 12, I think, when I started. And he died when I was 20. And I worked a year after we sold the store.
And then after that,
And after that, I got pregnant. And then we came to Amherst and did all our own painting and landscaping and you name it. Thanks to my stepfather, he found a lot. We got out of Lorraine.
you built your house?
When Rice did. We did all the painting. A lot of work.
little bit, I want to go a little more broad right now and ask about World War II. And specifically the attack on Pearl Harbor. Do you remember where you were when you heard about it?
I was home. My brother had just driven out to California. He was going to live out there and after he graduated from Oberlin. And that was a little nerve-wracking because everything was coming from that area, and whether or not the Japanese were going to bomb bomb Los Angeles was kind of a question at that time. That's where I was. The next day we were in school. But again, it wasn't Sunday.
You would have been. Because the same age, my grandmother was born in May of 1926, so I think she was 14, 15 years old, so same thing.
15 years.
So we were by the telephone at home.
But he was okay, everything was.
He was all right, yeah.
Did he have to go off to war?
He did later on. He went from Inglewood, Camp Roberts, California. He went to the Army.
He served the Atlantic or the Pacific?
Pacific.
Pacific.
And he never, when he was a kid, I don't think he ever went hunting. Touched probably a rifle or toy rifle, but he won a lot of awards during the war, marksmanship and that kind of thing. It was kind of neat. But he was in a very, what was that?
The Red Arrow.
The Red Arrow Division during the Philippine battle. And it was something that you said.
It was the bloodiest conflict over in the South Pacific there involved in. It was awful.
Was it Battle of Okinawa?
He was everywhere, but he started out early in the Philippines when they had the death march and took everybody prisoner. He was battling against the Japanese during all that. It was bad. They were getting their butts kicked.
Now, did he come home?
Yes, he did. We were very fortunate.
Do you remember what it was like when he came home? When you saw him come through the door?
Oh, yeah.
What was that like?
Like he came back to life. Because, well, we had no clue then without CNN and all the information we get now. We knew really nothing about what was really going on. We couldn't imagine. Other than we hated everybody who was involved with it, that was for sure. And
You realize we didn't have television then.
Right. Everything was from radio or those newsreels.
Yeah.
the letters you got were, half of a letter would have been blacked out or cut out of the letter. Nothing. Words they used to say that the slip of the lip could sink a ship, because people just didn't dare talk about things. Now, I mean, the same day you know what's going on.
They didn't write home about anything either. There's so many things I wonder about that my brother went through, and the guy I was waiting for, they couldn't tell us anything in there. There's just small.
And unfortunately, they didn't talk much about the war, and people weren't very aware of what we think about now is you just don't come home from a war and just fall right into kind of life you had before with comfort or ease or a possibility without having repercussions from it. And I'm sorry that a lot of those things we just weren't aware of like we are now or hope we are.
What we call PTSD. Yeah, my grandfather didn't start talking about his experience. He talked about the Pacific as well, and until like the last 7 or 8 months of his life. And then I finally started to hear some stories. Other than that, I would just hear bits and pieces. I don't want to talk about it.
None of them did.
Did you have any siblings go off to work?
I have a brother that went, he was in my class through from 4th grade through high school. He quit school after our junior year. Half of our guys quit school after the junior year to go into the service. They would have been in 43.
Now, was that something they were allowed, I mean, well, I guess they did, but was that something they were encouraged to do?
No, just a feeling of patriotism they had, that they felt they needed to be doing their part. And my brother was even given, what do you call it, Norm, when you don't have to go? Exemption, because he was the oldest son in a family of a widow's family of 5, and he wouldn't take it. He said all his buddies were going, he was going too. And he was stationed in a repair ship down in New Zealand. And when you said, how did you feel when you saw him come in? When he left, he was 17 years old. His face was full of acne and he had straight hair. And he worked down in the bottom of the ship, whatever that is, the hole where they did the repairs, and it was hot and steamy, and his hair got curly. So when he came home, he had this nice clear skin and curly hair, and he was it seemed like he was about 3 inches taller than he was when he left. When he walked in that front door, I just almost fainted. That I can remember screaming, "Mom, Bud's home." And she just sat and cried and cried. When they went overseas, they were gone for 3 years, or they were married 2.5, 3 years.
Imagine the joy that had to be.
Yeah, you just couldn't even imagine what it would be like when they walked in the door. First thing he did, I had bought a record player and had all the big band music. And he said, I want you to teach me the jitterbug. He was always antisocial. He never would go to school dances or anything. And when he said he wanted me to teach him the jitterbug, I couldn't believe it. We pushed all the furniture back and stacked up my number 45. And he was a really good dancer. We'd go up to the rec, and him and I would dance together. And everybody would clear the floor because we were both so tall and long-legged. We took up the whole floor. But we had fun. We just had fun.
And Mrs. Cat, do you have any siblings?
I had a younger brother, but nobody in the war.
Nobody in the war.
My brother-in-law was in the war. And he was, I just thought of the island in the Pacific. He never would talk about it, never. And it turned him into an alcoholic, really.
So what was your experience of wartime?
Just working at my dad's store because we were short help. I learned to do all sorts of things. Really, it didn't affect me personally that much.
Want to add about Pearl Harbor or anything like that? Okay.
My cousin was there.
In Pearl Harbor?
Yeah. He was with a Navy pilot and he was taking a tugboat to the mainland when they came in. Saw the whole thing. It's an interesting story.
Now, did he have a hard time talking about that?
No, he did not. No, he saw all the ships, his own ship get bombed. And he was in a little tugboat going to land.
Norm, were you in one of the wars before?
And I was in the Navy after Vietnam.
In the Navy.
Mhm.
I remember seeing you in uniform, I thought.
All right, I want to take it back a little bit more to Amherst and talk about the changes in Amherst since, I mean, obviously it's been decades and decades and lots of changes, but what has changed for the better? And what do you miss from, not of all lifestyle, but of Amherst specifically? Certain business or a certain, like, whatever experience that's an Amherst specific thing.
Well, Main Street Amherst has done a lot towards making sure that the town plan is good and working on appearances and variety and to make town, other than a grocery, we need a good grocery store and possibly a bakery. But Amherst, you could live in Amherst and not go to any other town. Look like they look because of the Depression. People couldn't pay to keep up their buildings like they should be able to during that time. There's a lot of people went belly up. And the town had a few spots that could have more buildings in it. But Amherst was alive and well on Saturday night. Now, they closed the stores on Wednesday afternoon. And my grandmother, who had a pharmacy, Cliff's Drugstore, it was called, KUSF, they had Wednesday afternoon off so the Amherst merchants could go shopping in Lorraine.
Wow.
It kind of bothered her. But on Saturday night, the farmers came to town because they didn't have to be worrying about doing their farm work on Saturday night. And it was booming. People would come to town to park their cars just to sit in the parking place and watch all the people who were uptown, who came to town and who didn't. And as I said, the stores were open until 9 or 9:30. And it was joy because when you see people uptown on a Saturday night, it was different than seeing them on a Saturday in the daytime or Friday on the daytime. Something kind of like a celebration. Being uptown on a Saturday night and seeing some of your friends, even the ones you saw in school 5 days a week. Something very special about it.
Mary, even when we'd go on a date, we'd maybe go to the early movie, and then, like she said, we'd just walk around the one block of town just to visit with people.
To see and be seen.
Or go into Mischke's and have our 10 cent Coke until we got too noisy and Wally would kick us off.
By the back of our
Yeah.
shirts or jacket.
You spend your dime, get out of here.
Now, Mrs. Happ, I know that Lorraine was a lot more booming than it is now, obviously, but
Definitely.
yeah. I hear stories about big department stores and theaters and stuff like that. What do you, I don't seem like a silly question to ask about the changes. But what do you think is, yeah.
I think it's all political. I'm sorry.
And she's probably right.
No. I drove down it yesterday and I couldn't believe it. This sad sight. It is, it's sad. There's nothing there. Nothing. Great lakefront, great park, but nothing on Broadway.
You would think eventually that would build back up, but it doesn't. It stays there.
There's got to be a reason.
You said
I
that.
say political.
I think
That's my opinion.
taking the hospital out, I think, made a difference.
Yeah, they took the whole front of the hospital off. They took the veterans part, I think, out of there too.
So what do you think has sustained Amherst through all the different changes in the 20th century, where like that pretty much decimated Lorraine and other Rust Belt cities like that? But Amherst was not, well, of course it is in the city, but what do you think is the base that's kept it healthy and alive?
I think people feel safe here. I really do. Even with the drugs that we put up with about 20 years ago in front of our building. But they're still passing drugs downtown. I saw it yesterday.
Here?
Yep.
That's over here.
Yep, right down by the park, next to your restaurant. 2 guys.
Jeff?
Mrs. Haff was born several years after the Lorraine tornado, but when she was a girl, Were they still talking about it? Was there still evidence of the tornado at that time?
Oh, I gotta think. Here was that tornado?
24.
24, yeah. My folks were just married and moved into an apartment at the corner of 5th in Washington. And it went right down there. Yeah, it scared my mother half to death. But you'd never know it now.
They rebuilt it pretty quick, I guess.
Yeah, but now the Lutheran Church is building that big new building there at 6th in the parking lot of old high school. I can't believe how big it is, back right up to these houses. Unbelievable. Oh, well, we got out of the rain. There was too much going on.
Before you move away from businesses downtown, when we were kids, Mary, you're gonna have to help me out, we had like 2 shoe stores?
Yeah, we
Four or 5 grocery stores, several separate meat markets, clothing and dress shops, Mr. Ebbs.
Selling it.
Ebbs Clothing Store, men and women's, 2 drug stores. Well, at one time we had 2 movies, but that didn't work, and so it ended up just one Mary Jane. But all of these in that 1.5 block of downtown, in a lot of bars.
2 shoe stores?
All of a lot of bars.
One was Bud Jennings.
We had Fred Holzhauer for a long time, and then later this one store burned next to Ben Franklin's, and they built a new store there, and that was a shoe store for a lot of years, different people, but a shoe store. And when I think in the gas stations, where like my dad's gas station was right there next, where the memorial wall is, that was where the gas station, George Benhouse's gas. Oh, we had 2 or 3 car dealers. We had Webster, Wagner, and Eversole Ford dealer. We had Plymouth, Pontiac. Yeah, we had a lot of car dealers in all the downtown area. I put my scooter down just for the heck of it the other day. You see this wild lady on a scooter, don't get nervous.
Yeah, I've heard stories about someone on a motorcycle. Is that you on a motorcycle or a scooter?
Back when I was 19, we had
19.
John Penn.
Were you to a thing? Were you to a thing? An item?
No, not really. He went with Monroe through school, and then after he went to the Navy and he came home on leave, I ran into him at the roller skating rink, and he asked to take me home. On the way home, we went past this stone building, and his brother's Harley was sitting there. He said, "You want to go for a motorcycle ride?" And yeah. So, his little, you remember his, well, you would remember his, you would remember with that tall, with the Model A.
Yeah, Model T.
T?
All souped up Model T.
It was like a little box with a skirt, like a little top hat going down the road. But anyhow, we parked his car, we took that bike, and then I liked it so much, the next day he came back and we rode all day long, and he let me drive. Oh, I had never driven a motorcycle, and I got Johnny Penn on the back. I said to him at a class party one time, I said, "What's wrong with you that you let me drive that thing?" He said, "What's wrong with you that you were willing to do it?"
So did you do it after that or just that one time?
Well, he was home on leave, so we rode 2 or 3 days during his leave, and then we went to movies with Elmer Reichert and his wife. And when you dated back then, you just went someplace with a guy and then maybe out to eat, and that was it. I mean, there was no big nasty stuff. I'm sorry. I pick up a book.
Well, if I should ask you to find
Yes, it brings me books from the library. Bring me books. I've been there, done that.
Okay.
You know, were you done with that? I think that we can We owe some of our debt to the folks in the Middle East who came to Amherst, Ohio back in the early 1900s because they had a work ethic and they had a desire to make their lives better. And they got into the different businesses in the Amherst area and saw that they continued to be. And now, I mean, if you look at the folks from the Middle East, Syria, Lebanon, that they have maintained some very strong businesses.
Mhm.
So we never really failed as a town because of their vision and their willingness to work. And Amherst also was a German community known of hard workers who, when they had a business, it was something that was important and tried to maintain it. And I think the work ethic was good here in Amherst. And then historical people like this group got into it and started to make things that make you look like they're ready to collapse, come back up and rise again, and made the town more complete. And look at what we've done here. I mean, it's not what I've done, but what's been done here is amazing. And I think there's something about a work ethic and a vision and a willingness to continue on to make improvements has made Amherst be what it is, including the school system. My dad had a lot to do with making this an amazing school system, and that certainly helps the community.
Maybe a fine, a melding between individualism and a responsibility to the community. That's what that's what it sounds like you're saying. That like they owe the community something to stay there and keep it strong and not just go for themselves and without profit all the time, but just make sure the community is a nice place to live. Let's see, Mrs. Half. How did you meet Mr. Half?
In school, high school.
We're not done yet.
Yes, you got me.
And when did you get married?
7 o'clock.
When?
I mean, how old were you when you got married?
Oh, I was 19.
19. Did you get married in Lorraine?
Yeah.
Do you remember? Tell me about the day. Do you remember the day?
Yeah, it was June 30th.
June 30th.
Nothing much spectacular about it.
Did you go on a honeymoon?
Yeah, we went to Thousand Islands. We intended to go further, but the car wouldn't do it.
And how long till your first child was born?
Oh, 3 years. 3 years. 3 years.
What's your favorite memory of your husband?
No, he was very talented, really. He's quite an artist. Did super carvings. I've got all sorts of carvings that he did and won prizes on. Interesting. We left Lorraine, I want to comment. We lived on Cornell Avenue, if anybody knows where it's at. It was by the high school. And all the kids came by, and there was a house right across the street that one of the Nabokowskis lived in. And they did bidding there. There was constantly people coming and going and coming and going. And I mean like 30, 40 an evening. And we reported to the city and they did nothing. Absolutely nothing. And we decided we had to get out of there. And
Does that bootleg route on it?
yeah, right across the street. I'm sure the city was being paid.
Big business.
They were being paid. They had to be. I mean, it was so obvious that even we could see it. You know.
You should have called Elliot. Yes, she'd have My neighbor has a question about after the war.
Bobby, I said, Faye, what is this zoot suit?
Mary, do you remember what a zoot suit is? Tell her.
Well, the pants looked like they're about this high. They were real big, full at the top, pleated. And they would wear a long jacket, a long chain, watch chain, and a hat that was kind of flat.
Hands and
And they were really ugly.
they didn't let us know, did they?
Did wide shoulders too, didn't
Yeah.
they?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah.
had wide shoulders,
Oh,
yeah.
my.
She'd come over and she'd, what the heck is a zoot suit? I said, that's a good question for tonight.
Giving me a couple questions as well. But what we're gonna do this time now is I'm gonna ask questions from all of you, and then, well, maybe some specific questions, excuse me. And then if anybody's got a follow-up question, just raise your hand. Because you may forget it later or something, or we may get totally off track. So if somebody's got a question about what we're talking about, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. Okay, so I'm asking about US automatics. Who worked at US automatics?
I did,
You did.
when I was in high school. Did you want me to say something?
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, US Automatic, of course, was a former Nordson, and it was named for two men. I can't think of it right now.
Shagley.
And Mr. Shagley went out west, but Mr. Nord, of course, took it over. And during the war, they had quite an assignment, and they made something that had to do with part of a bomb, and they had the inspection room, and they had the room, of course, where these things were manufactured. And they did so well that they were given the Army and Navy E.
It's out there on the wall.
Yeah, and there's a picture. Was that the day it was awarded?
Yes.
I can look at that picture and I can name a lot of people in that picture who worked there. And I worked in the inspection room, and I got to turn something, and it had to go all the way down. All I know is it had something to do with some type of ammunition in World War II. And you could work there when you were 16. And Mr. Nord's two sons, who were graduates of Case University, were very active in that factory. And my cousin Marilyn, Marilyn Peach, Jenny, graduated from high school and got a job with Mr. Nord as his private secretary. And she worked there for many years and then continued on. But the Nords had so much energy when it came to working and figuring things out that they had done wonderfully well with what is now Nordson. But I rode to work on my bicycle, and the funniest thing about one of the things that happened on the inspection line, we sat like this, and we would send this piece down the row and turn this piece of equipment in it. And they worked what they called the incentive plan. And some of the ladies were having trouble with that word. They kept calling it incentive, but whatever. They were gung-ho for that incentive because they knew that meant more money in their envelope when they got their pay. And one lady, if you go to the bathroom, she almost had a clock to see how long you stayed, because if you didn't hurry up and get back, you're going to mess up the incentive, and then you won't get that money in your paycheck. Well, one day, this gentleman was placed next to her to turn the little thing down and do what you're supposed to keep the incentive going. And his feet smelled. His feet smelled so bad. And she got sick and had to go and throw up. I'm kidding her about the fact she, of all people, messed up the incentive for us getting this paycheck. And she said, well, I worked in the farm all my life and I smelled everything there was to smell. I didn't smell anything like those feet. This is the kind of thing that makes life so interesting.
That's saying something if you've been on a farm and then that was as bad as, oh.
But the Nords have just done wonderfully well with their vision and their production, but started out with that humble little place, but plus the freezer storage place they had next door. You would pay to store meat before people had freezers of their own, and they always had something going that was going to make money, and they've done very well. And I enjoyed it. I rode my bicycle to work every day, and I had a little badge, and I guess I was really, what do they call her?
Rosie the Riveter.
Rosie the Riveter. I was Rosie, Mary the Inspector.
What about
Mary,
What about
did you know that Nord started on Maple Street in a little beat-up shack? Like, I have a picture of it somewhere. Jim, you knew that the Nord started in that little wooden shack there on Maple.
American Specialty Company.
Was that what it was
That
called
was
then?
Walter Nord's first company.
Okay, well, American Specialty Company sounds a bit vague. What did they need?
They rolled tubes for sprayers.
Yeah.
My mom did that one summer.
Yep,
That was where the bowling alley was.
yep.
And Richard Graves told me that they made Bluebird radios at one time. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
When I was
They made
writing
a lot of
for the
stuff.
News Times, I would go and talk.
A lot of people don't know that Walter Nord had a quarry at one time.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Where?
It was in Pennsylvania.
Well, it wasn't
It
them.
wasn't Amherst, no. But he had a rock quarry. And
What did you do with that?
he sold it, and he came to Amherst, and he put the American Specialty Company. Now, Bryant Machine Shop, which was on the corner of Harris and Franklin, across from where the depot is today, he bought that out, and that was his first American Specialty Company. And then he bought the place over on Mill Street, that, not Plum, but Albert Hume had a building over there after American Specialty.
Well, then American Specialty was where the
Bowling alley, part of the bowling alley, which was John Michael's garage, was where they made the fly sprayers.
Yeah.
Oh, the
And
Fly-O-Matic.
then they also had 2 or 3 places in Oberlin back then.
Is it back there where Nord Avenue is or not?
Well, I don't know exactly where they were in Oberlin, but he did have a couple facilities there. They were small shops, but then when Youthy and Shively went into receivership, Walter Nord was like the second or third guy there, and the judge awarded the business to Walter Nord.
Was that like after the Depression that happened?
I'm gonna say I think it was during the Depression.
During the Depression?
Yeah.
Shively had some problems.
He went to prison.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a problem.
Yeah. He got caught with his fingers in the cookie jar. He had involvement in the Amherst Supply Company, which was the elevator and the lumber yard. And he also, the German bank, he had his fingers in that. So somewhere along the line, Mr. Shively wasn't very honest.
Mr. Nord.
Yes.
I misstepped somewhere.
And then, I don't know how many people know this, but the Outdoor Life, Walter Nord bought that and donated it to become a private park. And that was the old Breakstone Quarry Company out there. And they went belly up, and that's when Walter Nord bought that, so.
So who owns it now?
Outdoor Life, it's the association.
Our class had one of our yearly picnics out there, remember? Jack Rosencrantz was a member, so he went out and made arrangements for us to come and have our class picnic there.
Were you eaten by mosquitoes? Were you eaten by the mosquitoes out there?
Pretty much.
Was that couch usually the same youth?
There were so many youths around here. At one time, there was a youth who had a shoe store, youth who had a drug store.
General store.
Yeah, the Tenny, on the corner where the party shop is today, that was a youth's drug store. And then he kept the building, and he moved over on where you live across the street. Malad's old building, that was youth's drug store.
On a real old map we've got up on the wall, it shows a youthy store like behind where the town hall is.
Yes.
Where the B&B is.
Yeah. But that ended up being a guy by the name of Cummings
Cummings,
Shoe Store.
Shoe store.
There's advertisements on it that I located.
You look at those old maps and you see those names and you think, they'll show 2 or 3 stores back
Yeah.
there, and you think, well, there's one house sitting there, you know.
Well, back then, they would build a little shack right onto the house, and that was the store. No.
General store.
You talked about the hotel a while ago. Well, the hotel was built in the 1840s, and in 1880, it burned to the ground, so they rebuilt it again, and in 1885, it burned to the ground again. And then across the street where O.H. Baker's house is, they rebuilt that house today, and it's where Don Woodings lived there for a while. They moved the building that was there, they moved across the street, and they made the hotel out of that, the one that we know that got tore down. And they kept adding on to it, Jerry will tell you, they added on to it how many times?
Quite a few times.
Yeah.
Now, still with the businesses, I want to talk about the quarries a little bit, because, well, we're the sandstone center of the world and all of that. Now, do any of you ladies have any memories of, like, I didn't work in the quarries, but did you know anyone who did? Did you ever go down there and, like, people go swimming or whatever, you hear about that kind of thing? I don't know. Do you have any quarry memories or anything about that?
Jim, your grandfather worked in the quarries, didn't he?
My great-grandfather came over here from Switzerland, and that's where they went to work.
his grandfather. Well, my dad, two days.
Dad's father was a doctor in South Amherst. So those kids who grew up working in the quarry, carrying water or something like that. And my uncle was a head electrician up there at the quarries. And those who worked there lived on Buckeye Street because those homes were furnished by the quarries at the time. But the quarries had a lot to do with building Amherst too, because not only of the workers, but the different nationalities that came into this area to do that kind of work. They have the things they have over in the Historical Society in Quigley, those little tools that the people from Scotland use to do the fine work on the stone. And there were some Scottish families, some lived on Beaver Court in Amherst by the City Hall. Mm-hmm. And apparently the Scottish people were especially trained in that, doing that fine work.
Mary, the memorial from World War I over on the south side of the town hall with the big eagle. A guy named Jim Henry worked at the cut stone, and he designed and cut that thing out.
Is he the one who just died a little while ago?
I don't know. It seems like if he did that in 1924, he'd have been dead before
Oh
that.
yeah, that must have been his
But
father.
John.
Richard Graves told me that. I didn't know that. And you've got all of this history sitting there right in your face, and never even wonder about it. I mean, I see people sitting around on the edge of that thing at parades and things like when we went. But you wonder how many of them even give a thought to that. And then like the bandstand, the quarry workers and sandstone The cut sandstone, whatever you call it.
Cut stone pipe.
Cut stone. How clever of you. Anyhow, they're the ones that dedicated that to Amherst.
What was the bandstand built?
The bandstand was built in 1915. The other one was built in 1924.
That was World War.
The one right by City Hall, that's 1915?
Yeah, right now.
One of 5 points.
Okay. I want to
Sorry, Norm.
talk about something as far as like how cities change when they have independently, locally owned businesses and then there are chains. And when's the first time any of you, like I grew up just knowing this business and a lot of us did and we've all been to it. When's the first time you ever went to McDonald's?
Oh, God. I have a story for that one.
Well, when it's your turn, we'll do that. You'll get your chance in a minute. First time you ever been to McDonald's?
Mark was 12, so what was that?
Oh, yeah. And there was,
McDonald's there.
yeah, and there was 154, and there was something called Sandy's. They became McDonald's later. But I didn't even, I mean, whatever you were going to tell,
A week earlier?
yeah.
Well, that's, want to finish with these?
Yeah, I want to know what and how that changed, and just something like that changed the nature of restaurants. I think we all have been to fast food and everything, how that's changed things.
Well, that made it nice when, like, if you were, like, when I was teaching, it was nice to, instead of having to go home and cook, to go to McDonald's and get sandwiches for everybody. But they had the Sandy's, it was called in Lorraine, it was now McDonald's. And all the way down to the restaurant, the kids would fight. And I would say, what do I go through all this for? We're going down here to have a nice sandwich and everybody has to fight. Well, it kind of was part of it, but it was nice to have a place like that. It was handy for us mothers who didn't have time to cook. I don't know.
That's how I got familiar with McDonald's when I got a divorce. And I had to work, and I had 3 kids at home. One had already died. And I would stop at McDonald's and get a bag of sandwiches and fries, and that was it, milkshakes.
So it was almost like
It just
It was
helped.
a huge
Like
help.
Mary said, when you worked, you didn't have time for all that.
Jerry, you have a question?
When McDonald's first came about, what you gotta realize, you actually got change for $1. You could almost feed your family for $1 or $2. Anymore, it's ridiculous. Any place you go. But back then, you could go into a regular restaurant for 50.
All the way to Rock Creek Run, there was no McDonald's.
Right. So would you consider that an improvement, or were things lost because of that big highway came in? That's what I'm asking. These are all things I want to know. How this changed things for you?
I need to speak up for them.
I-90.
I-90.
Why didn't 58 even?
Well, we were supposed, where we live, I-90 was supposed to go through the property, and it didn't, it went behind it, because it just messed everything up. But there became an allotment on the other side of it, which was after Orange Estates. But I-90, it kind of, Route 58 ruined the old farmland of Amherst, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And if that's an improvement, so be it, but those of us old ones sure did like it when it was.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm not saying something's an improvement or not. I'm just asking how you see it.
Changed.
How it changed
over there.
things.
It's a change. Yeah, because traffic's horrible and it just doesn't belong.
Oh, you ought to go out to Seattle if you think that's traffic.
When I was teaching my great-grandson to drive, I was going to give him my car when I was done driving. I had taught his dad to drive, and I said, I can't wait till Stephen's old enough and I can teach him. He said, Grandma, you'll be 80 years old then. I said, no, I was 85 and I was teaching. But I would take him first out in the country and just turn him loose, let him drive. He knew enough about, he rode little motorcycles and go-karts and stuff, so he knew mechanics pretty well, you know, to be able to drive. And I just sat in the seat and let him go, and I didn't give him a lot of orders how to do things, you know. So after he did so well out in the country, I said, okay, tomorrow we're going to go on and off Route 2. You have to get on and get off and watch the traffic. He did really good. So he said, I said, Stephen, I think you're ready for your license. He said, not yet. And I said, oh yeah. I said, I have confidence. Took him down and he passed his test. So I gave him the keys. I said, drive over to your dad's and tell him you got your license today and Grandma took you for it.
Now, is there anything that you did for fun as young women that you miss now that people just don't do anymore?
Well, I want to ask a question, and I know these people are all like a generation behind us here. How many of you went to the rec hall when you were kids?
Yeah.
See, just about all of them. Now, the rec center started when we were juniors in high school. And we had to write an essay in English about what we'd like to see happen in Amherst. And this one kid, Wayne Heller, wrote this essay saying that Amherst needed a place for the teenagers to go and spend time. At the time, the store next to Ben Franklin's had burned. That was an empty lot, and that's where the teenagers hung out. They had put the popcorn stand there, and all the teenagers in town just hung out in that bare lot there. But then when he wrote that essay, the teacher said, well, why don't you guys see if you can do something about it? And I told this at one of our other meetings, so if you've heard it, ignore me. But we did. We went to the city council, they turned us down. We went to the school board, and they turned us down. And we finally were the guys were talking, when I'm putting the gym, I mean his dad. But the guys finally went to Stan Reichert. He was a younger man, you remember him. Him and his wife were interested in helping us get this thing off the ground. So they suggested we go to the fire department of all places. We never thought to go there. And the guys thought it was, of course, they all had kids in school, so they thought it was a great idea. And they offered us $100 seed money just for cleaning supplies. If we found a place for cleaning supplies, and we even painted, and we just, I asked Mary once, I said, do you remember when we cleaned that hall? What did you tell me?
Well, I cleaned the toilet.
Yeah, you should have cleaned the toilet. I said it was a dirty job, but somebody had to do it.
So how many people helped do that?
All of our junior class and some of
Class
few
in
of the seniors.
1944.
It was in 43 that we did it, in our junior year. And some of the other, like sophomores and seniors would help. But it basically was our class that put that thing together. Then Peg and Stan Riker agreed to be our chaperones, no money. They just come up every night. We collected dues. In fact, I think my card's in here, where it was 25 cents for 3 months.
So what were the dues used for?
We used
Maintaining everything?
Maintaining, yeah, and repairs or anything that we needed, paint or whatever.
Who'd you rent it from?
And then, pardon?
Who did you rent it from? Who owned it?
I didn't hear.
Who owned it?
Who owned the building?
It was a lodge. Do you remember who it was?
It wasn't it?
Knights of the Maccabees.
The mage, who?
Knights of the Maccabees.
Maccabees, that's who it was, yeah. But they weren't using it for a lodge, and then the Eagles had been in there, and they bought the Ashenbaugh house on the corner, And then that was empty, so we offered to rent it. And right after we got it all cleaned up and rented and got started, then they decided to sell it.
Yeah.
So Stan and Peg, bless their hearts, they said, why don't you go knocking door to door? So the whole class went out knocking. You couldn't do that today, go up, knock on your door and say you want a donation. People threw
Well,
us
they
out.
call on the telephone.
Yeah,
Right.
Robocall.
yeah, robocall. But we finally got enough money to buy that upstairs of Slutzker's. It's Dave Fox's, not hers upstairs. That's where we were, upstairs.
Did you have to buy it or didn't rent
We
it?
had to buy it because they were gonna sell it.
How could
We had
you
just
bought the
got,
whole building?
not at the store.
How could you sell it?
I don't know. And I worked in real estate for years.
That was in 1944.
Yeah.
Could do it today.
But that was really someplace. And then we had two nights set aside a week that the junior high could use it for a rec center because we didn't want them in with us. Oh, and there was this one guy in high school, Don Sweet, during the World War II big banner. He started a band, got a bunch of guys together, and they had this band, and so they paid for us. And then we had live music up there. And we were an aggressive group of kids, when I would say.
It's a ballet
And
studio.
when I say how many of you went to the rec center and how many of you did, but when did you change it to the attic? Do you remember, Norm?
I just remember in high school, we called it the attic, but earlier in junior high, we called it the rec.
We always called it the rec
Yeah,
center.
I think it changed probably around 69 when a big hippie movement came in.
Yeah, because they painted
Yeah,
the walls
yeah.
with real wild colors. I remember seeing that.
Mr.
Yeah.
Croy was in charge of it then. Crazy.
Teacher.
Joe, did you have a question or comment?
A statement, I still have my red card, who else has theirs?
And you know, just think after that was done, short time after, those guys went off to the war.
The guys from our class, yeah. But we did that in 43, and when I was doing, not this book, when I was writing for the News Times, I was looking for articles about it, and in 1972, I found an article where the kids were bored with it, they didn't have air conditioning.
Yeah.
They didn't have a live band, well, they should have put them together like we did. But they just were bored with it, and so it just closed. I couldn't find any telephone numbers or in the city directories. I would look for addresses, and I couldn't find it in there. So I figured in 72, it just closed down. From 43 to 72, that was a really great place.
And Dad got the money for him finally.
Oh, yeah, her dad put it on the ballot for the recreation center and the field where the guys play ball, right? They called that the memorial field after the war. And he put those two things on the ballot and it passed, and so now we had a fund for the rec center and the recreational field. All this history you guys don't know.
I heard stories from Mom about rivalries from other schools.
Where's Charlie? Is he still around?
What was the one where there was almost
That
a
was the
riot in the
Rumble.
gymnasium? I want to hear that story.
Oh, the Rumble.
The South Amherst game?
Oh, in South Amherst game,
Grandpa.
Amherst and South Amherst were sworn enemies in basketball. And Amherst and Clearview were sworn enemies in basketball. But when South Amherst played Clearview, Amherst was for South Amherst. When Amherst played Clearview, South Amherst was for Amherst. But one night there was a game up at Central School, and Bud Jenny, who I think graduated from 1937, and John Luke from South Amherst were two hotheads. They got into it on that basketball floor like most people wouldn't think possible. And that's the night that Dad was on the bleachers. He went flying off the bleachers and into the middle of that floor. And it was a fight. But those were the days, people really weren't violent. They just were upset because they both wanted to win. But anyhow, those are things you can remember and know why you love a school, and we'll never forget about it when you keep on living and you still remember.
But you realize when we graduated, we would have had 72 people in our graduating class. With the 15 boys that left for the service, that left us with what, about 58 graduating in our class. We still included them after the war whenever we had reunions and parties and picnics. They were always included, But there are, at this time, there are 15, did I tell you 15? 15 of us left.
I was just gonna ask that, how many are left?
Yeah. I think your mom and Fifi Miller were the last two that have died.
So South Amherst was the biggest rival that you remember?
And Clearview.
Clearview too, yeah, Clearview, I can remember.
Used to tangle with Brownhill once in a while too, didn't he?
Well, that was, we didn't play that in basketball.
Yeah, wasn't there something about like somebody stealing somebody's women or something? I remember that.
Charlie's always laughing about
Or I just like the picture.
Yeah, with the policemen.
Well, I think the funniest thing was when the minister from a Congregational Church in Amherst was downtown when he heard about the riot, and Bud Layoff got a hold of him to the back of his jacket. Bud was the police chief.
He was the only cop.
He got a hold of the minister, pulled him back, and was going to take him to jail. Well, the minister kind of talked his way out of it. But those are the kind of things that happen, and those are so neat. You don't
Well, what
forget-
caused this?
What caused it?
The riot?
Well, the mothers from Brownhill said it was the Amherst girls that caused it. That we were after their sons because some of their sons didn't have to go to the war because they were farming. And it was a legitimate reason. And so the newspaper articles started up that it was those girls in Amherst that started that fight.
Said that we were dating Brown.
They went after the Brownhill boys because they were available.
So we came to Amherst and got in a fight with all of the Amherst boys. Jim's dad punched some kid and knocked him into the big plate glass window of the hardware. And so then the Brownhill guys took off for Brownhill, and one kid had a little Model A or I don't know what.
It was kind of like
But we had about 15 kids piled in that and on the roof, on the fenders, standing on the back bumpers. We had one little skinny guy, we'd put him up on the shelf in the back.
We were two of those 15.
She got sent home. She came from such a straight family. Her next door neighbor were coming up town for all the action. Her dad started to her mother wants you home. So Mary missed out. Charlie saw a picture of all these guys under the Amherst sign, the big Amherst sign, and the one police car. That's all we had, one police car, one cop. And it was parked up by the bandstand. And Charlie said, where were all the girls? I said, we were probably in Webster's drugstore looking out the window so we could get arrested. In Webster's drugstore, the Ruth's Triangle building, it has the front door. Most of you know this. It has the side door on Cleveland Avenue and one on Park Avenue. So after a game, if we won a big game like Clearview game or something, the kids in the band would grab their instruments and we'd go downtown and have a snake dance. The band would play and everybody would follow them and we'd go in and out of that building. At first in one door and out the
So
other.
that's a snake dance? I never heard that term before, snake dance.
We've got video of it from her dad. We have video of those snake dances.
It was a-
So wait a minute, to explain the snake dance, you just,
It's a conga line.
oh, okay.
It was like a parade, you know, just marching in and out according to the music.
Oh, cool, okay. Russ, do you have a question?
Police history. And I went down to the police station and talked to, who the heck was the chief then?
Lonnie? Lonnie?
Hall or Dylan?
Dylan. And I told him what I wanted to do, a history of the police department. And he says, well, Dan Jasinski is accumulating old relics from the police, like handcuffs and ghillie clubs and that. He said, okay, I can talk to him and maybe you can work together. Well, Dan and I worked together on that, and I did a database of all of the cops, just from reading newspapers. And I'd see so-and-so was there, and I'd look at the date, and I'd mark that on my database. And I just kept putting this database together. And then I would enlarge it. I'd print out a sheet and enlarge it and walk around town talking to cops and ex-cops and police chiefs. Bill Hall came to my house one day, and Lou next door to me came over to take a picture of us. It's in that book. But anyhow, him and I put together this book, and Sue, is Sue still here? Sue Hammond back there had bought one of these books, and she asked me once if I'd ever heard of a policeman that was shot in the line of duty in Amherst. And I said I hadn't, but I would check around. Well, I went to the town hall, asked the mayor's office, they didn't know. I went to the police department, they never heard of anything. I went all over to older people I could think of, and nobody knew about this. And so I thought, well, Orville was doing obituaries, so I went up there to look in his obituary sheet. And, I found this little article in Bertine Foster's, she used to write for the News Times, Old History. And she said, does anybody remember the good-natured police officer that was shot in the line of duty in 1916? And she said his name, and I cut that little thing out and gave it to Orville. I said, I can't find an obituary, but this needs to be in our history.
Yeah.
So here's this little tiny clipping, it's all I had to work with. And when Sue asked me, I showed her that, and we went from there. Now, nobody has ever found a picture of Rupert Becker. Dan was so disappointed because we put him, Dan got the papers together, and I went to the health department, got his death certificate, and got the clippings. We went up to the cemetery and took pictures of their graves, the family graves, and found out it was Sue's great-grandpa, right? And I went to school with Sue's dad. He was a few years behind me, but Becker, I knew him, but I didn't know she was related to him. But anyhow, Dan and I start sending this information in to get his name on police fallen officers memorial. We've got him on one in Cleveland, in one of those parks. We've got it down in London, Ohio. There was a program out in Avon Lake that you and your dad was still living. We went to that one together with Dan, and we got his name on all of these memorials. There was one other one. Where was the other?
D.C.
Oh, Washington, D.C. And I gotta tell you this story. After World War II, Memorial opened, my girlfriend and I decided we wanted to go see it, so we took a bus tour to Washington, D.C. And just crazy coincidence, this young guy that was driving the bus, I took a copy of the clipping where Dan and I were doing that book and all about Rupert being shot on the line of duty. Rupert Becker was the only Amherst police that was ever killed in the line of duty in Amherst. Now that in itself is something that would be your great three great
Faye, remember why it was so hidden that nobody knew about it? Because it was not in the newspaper? Why? Why was it not in the newspaper? Wasn't there some other big doings at the time that overrode it?
The only thing I could add, Dan and I spent a whole half a day at the library going through the microfiche, looking for his obituary. His train wreck.
Is that the same time as the train wreck?
It was,
Got
the officer.
backstage by the train wreck.
1916.
The train wreck
The
was a
train wreck.
That was why there was nothing, and there was a little article in the middle of the paper, because it was the same night as the train wreck, and the whole paper was full of pictures and stories about that, and here's this little tiny article, a cop shot, maybe fatal or something like that, and he died 3 days later.
Well, all of this brings me to my question for each
Yeah,
of you.
he was called a night constable at different times.
Night watchman.
And they had been voted in. Those cops were voted in at that time. Because we had a thing from the newspaper that showed who got how many votes.
Weren't you going to tell about that Lynn?
Okay, he was done. I started talking about our bus driver that took us on his trip to Washington DC. I showed him this clipping. I didn't know the kid was from Amherst. And I just showed him this clipping. And I said, this cop and I are doing a book of the Amherst police history. And I said, we've got this cop's name on the Judiciary Square memorial wall that they had just completed. And I said, is there any little window of time that my girlfriend and I can get out there, take a taxi or whatever? We didn't know where it was. And he said, well, we'll see what we can do. He read this article to the people on the bus. So pretty soon he pulls up to the curb and I look and here we are in Judiciary Square. And he got on the speaker, he said, Faye, you and your girlfriend can get off here and check out that name. But he said, we don't have time for everybody to get off. He said, would you just go and take a picture and get on? So, and then he told me later he was from Amherst. His name was Dale Lynn. I don't know if anybody knows him or not.
Down Lincoln Street.
Yeah, Lincoln's Kathy's brother.
I went to school with
But here he was, when I showed him that article, he didn't tell me he was from Amherst until he pulled up there. And then he finally told me that he was from Amherst. But when you think about how old Amherst is, and that only one policeman has been shot and killed in the line of duty, that is amazing.
You'd have been shot at.
Now, okay, so roll out. I wanted to know, okay, so this brings me to the book that you wrote and everything. And I want all three of you to answer this question if you wouldn't mind. Why do you think it's important to keep records and to pass down the history of not just Amherst, but your own history, any kind of history? But why did you write that book, and why do you think it's important?
Well, I've always loved Amherst, and for a while I had to move away when they tore our house down where the movie is. We had to move out of Amherst for a little while, and I always wanted to get back. Well, as soon as I got back home, I came up here to one of they used to have monthly meetings. Is Matt still here?
No, he's not.
Matt was 8 years old when they had him talk about the house they bought. And then Valerie said, we have a speaker tonight, that little guy over there. And I said, you're kidding me. And that kid did such a great job. He really knew what he was talking about. But anyhow, I just started gathering pictures and articles, and I thought, I should put that in a scrapbook. And that was what it was going to be, a scrapbook for me, for you. And I got a picture of it where it's in just a loose leaf notebook, you know. And I just kept working at it, and I bring this scrapbook up here to the meetings when they'd have it laid on a table. Well, people would stand in line to look at it. And everybody would say, I wish I could have a copy of that. Well, I decided, why not? I talked to Valerie about it, and she didn't think that was such a hot idea. She said, it's just a little spiral notebook. Nobody's gonna want that. I have sold over 600 copies of this all over Hawaii, Alaska, everywhere those books are. But then I started doing the database of the businesses. I had gone through so many of these.
Right.
And I get the names and addresses and the years that that business was there and the proprietor. And I was sitting at home one time with graph paper, just scribbling all of this information. I made columns when I had stuff going both ways. And my son came and said, Mom, he said, you need a computer. I said, for what? He said, you're doing a database. I said, oh, is that what that is? And so he finally talked me into getting a computer and taught me how to do a database. And that's how I got, and most of you know that that database is online at the library.
It's a great resource.
Lisa and Cheryl, Ashton.
Now, what about you, Mrs. Happ? You have, I mean, I've seen you do historical society things, everything. Why do you think it's important to share history of?
I don't know, I just think it's like a database for life. Things reoccur and reoccur. That's how you handle it.
I like the old saying, how are you gonna know where you're going if you don't know where you came from?
Now, what about you, Mrs. Miller?
Well, I grew up with a mother who was so interested in the history of Amherst. She was born and raised here. Her father, a German immigrant. I'm sorry, he was born in this country. His father was a German immigrant. And it was so important to her to know the history of Amherst, the people, the families. And it was just part of my life to hear these stories. And it really caught on. And to this day, I know things about the town that are so valuable. It makes you love a place even more when you realize the folks who've been here before, what they've managed to do. And I'm very interested in people anyhow. And it's a beautiful way to just sit and think some days, Fay and I sit and talk for hours periodically about old Amherst and the people that we knew and the people that made a difference in our lives. And these people deserve that respect. They deserve to be remembered. And Norm Shelley's daughter, Emily, who's teaching history, is doing a very good thing because she's having students come to the Historical Society and ask questions. And those kids are learning the history of Amherst, where otherwise, if that hadn't been brought to their attention, I'm not sure that some of these things they would have ever known about.
That's true.
Hoping that this builds up an interest in them and they will be forever be proud of.
Mary, those kids, when they come up here, are really so interested in what's going on. The adults that go up there on Monday, look like
It's like they're,
but you would see pictures Charlie would put on with all of these kids sitting around the table. Someone had this book, someone had the other books that I had done. And that gave me a good feeling to know all this wasn't going to waste, But if Emily hadn't gotten her kids interested in coming up there, these kids would have no idea about any of that stuff.
I remember my dad taking a picture of 1905 fireman over to your mother. And she sat there and every one of them guys thought my dad said, slow down, girl, I can't write that fast.
So that's where Mary gets it from, because she sat down one day and she narrated 2+ hours.
On the line at the library.
I know, but
Mary, punch a couple keys, research,
I wanna
and then look at
okay.
Talk
To who?
To them. I gave it to them, gave them permission to print it if they wanted to.
What's the, how about, say that again? He was being nasty.
I said I gave the original book
Mm-hmm.
to the Monday night research
Okay.
group with a letter signed by me and Joan that they have permission to print it and sell it if they want.
That book is great, by the way.
I
have one of those at home.
Great, by the
I
way.
wanted to just be able to.
I said your book is great, by the way.
Not out of a.
Now, before we bring out, we've got a little
Just bring it.
celebration, little cake to bring out, everything good for everybody to have a treat, but I have one more question for each of you. And it's not Amherst specific, it's just anything. What would you tell, like, what would Faye Van Nuys, Faye Van Nuys, tell Faye Van Nuys at 25? What would the 91-year-old Faye tell 25-year-old Faye? What would
Have fun.
88.
Have fun.
Yeah. What would you tell your younger self? What would you tell your younger self?
What would I tell my younger self?
Don't sweat the small stuff. Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
And be aware of what's the world around you and continue to do what you can do to make a difference. And enjoy what you have. Don't pine and carry on for something that you don't have. Because, well, they say the things that seem like little things in your life, you look back on them and they were really very big things that were very important, and be aware of them. And don't get married so soon.
Mrs. Hack?
Well, I just told my granddaughter the other day to quit worrying about the small stuff. She had enough big stuff to quit worrying about the little stuff.